welcome to Lace Stone, and my dad listens to this brand new microphone edition. I'm Juliet the daughter.
And I'm Kevin the dad.
And that's right, listeners, we have a brand new microphone, so hopefully you're hearing us clearly right now. The sound waves on my computer look wonderful. Before we start with this episode, as you all know, we heard the news about Ozzy Osbourne, so that means we have another tribute episode we need to do. However, Dad and I talked it over. We were originally planning a summer special for you listeners, and we've agreed that we're going to take a break from some tribute episodes right now, and then we're just going to do the summer special like we originally planned, and then we'll go to Ozzy because, let's face it, we need an emotional break. But in the meantime, we're doing our second tribute episode as promised for Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. So, Dad, what do we need to know?
We need to know there's a lot to Brian Wilson's life that we just don't have the room to cover on this podcast. So there are going to be gaps. For a deep dive into the man's life, I recommend the 2006 biography, Catch a Wave, The Rise, Fall, and Redemption of the Beach Boys' Brian Wilson by Peter James Carlin. And yes, I read it, and it was really good. Okay, Brian Douglas Wilson was born June 20th, 1942 in Inglewood, California. Brothers Dennis and Carl were born in 1944 and 1946. The family moved to Hawthorne, California after Dennis was born. Now, Brian had an ability to learn by ear, hearing a song once and being able to reproduce it.
That's a gift.
He learned accordion at 7 and performed choir solos at church. The choir director said Brian had perfect pitch. When Brian was 11, during a Christmas choir rehearsal, it was found that he had diminished hearing in his right ear.
Ooh.
It was diagnosed as a nerve impingement, but the exact cause remained unclear, Murray. This caused Brian to speak from the side of his mouth, which gave the impression that he had had a stroke, but he hadn't had it. The hearing loss would later lead Brian to record in mono rather than stereo.
Huh.
When Brian was 12, the family got an upright piano, and he taught himself to play by listening to his favorite songs over and over. A friend of Brian's dad and tormentor Murray taught Brian how to write manuscript music. Brian also sang at school and at home. He taught Dennis and Carl harmony parts. Brian was heavily influenced by the vocal group, the Four Freshmen. Now, Brian was a quarterback at Hawthorne High School and ran cross country in his senior year. For his 16th birthday, he received a portable 2-track tape recorder. He experimented with songs, group vocals, and production techniques. He performed at a fall arts program in high school and enlisted his cousin and singing partner, Mike Love, and enticed brother Carl to join by naming the group Carl and the Passions, which would later become the name of one of their albums.
Huh.
Apparently, the performance impressed neighbor Al Jardine. Brian briefly went to El Camino College, where Al also attended. Brian majored in psychology and pursued music, but he dropped out due to his teacher's disdain for pop music. In 1961, Brian, Dennis, Carl, Mike, and Al debuted as the Pendletones.
Okay.
At Dennis's suggestion, Brian and Mike wrote a song called Surfin'. Now, Dennis was the only one in the group who actually surfed.
Mm-hmm.
Murray became the manager. Surfin' came out on Candix Records, and it was the label that changed the band's name to the Beach Boys. The band's debut was at a Ritchie Valens memorial dance on New Year's Eve 1961. Brian had just received a bass, learned how to play it quickly, and Al Jardine moved from bass to rhythm guitar. Carl played lead, Dennis was on drums, and Mike was on nasal/whiny vocals. When Candix sold the master recordings to another label, Murray ended their contract, but not before taking off his belt and giving Candix what for.
Oh, jeez.
Brian collaborated with local musician Gary Usher to produce demos for Surfin' Safari and 409. Capitol Records was persuaded to release the demos as a single, et voila, as they say in French, national hit. Capitol signed the Beach Boys to a 7-year contract.
Whoa.
While recording their debut album, also called Surfin' Safari, Brian convinced Capitol to let the band record outside Capitol's basement studios.
Mm-hmm.
He also secured production control over the album. The album came out in October 1962 and went to number 32. Surfin' Safari, the song, went to number 14. 1963. Brian produces 3 Beach Boys albums, Surfin' USA, Surfer Girl, and Lil Deuce Coupe. He limits his appearances with the band to TV and local shows. Neighbor David Marks filled in for Brian for other performances. Brian also writes and produces for other acts. He co-wrote Surf City with Jan Berry for Jan and Dean. It proves to be Jan and Dean's comeback hit going to number one, the first source song to do so. Murray demands Brian stop working with them,
Uh-oh.
or else. But they continue to appear on each other's recordings. Brian also produces the Ravel sisters, of who one of them, Brian, would marry Marilyn in 1964. They'd have two daughters, Wendy and Carney, who would go on to become two-thirds of the group Wilson Phillips in the 1980s. China Phillips was the remaining third. 1964, three more Beach Boys albums come out. Shut Down Volume 2 in March, All Summer Long in June, and the Beach Boys Christmas album in November. Brian also goes on an international tour with the boys during all this writing and producing. But after a stressful Australasian tour, yes, the band fires Murray as manager. And then
Troubles?
Beatlemania.
Oh.
Brian has concerns that the Beach Boys reigned supreme before John, Paul, George, and Ringo invaded the U.S. shores. And now, maybe not so much, so it causes him to up his game. But there was a cost. At the end of 1964, Brian has a breakdown. Glenn Campbell replaces Brian for the rest of the tour.
Whoa.
Yeah. Bruce Johnston is hired to be Brian's permanent touring replacement. Not being on tour, Brian becomes socially distant from the other boys. He gets a new circle of friends who introduce Brian to philosophy, world religions, as well as marijuana and hashish. 1965, he and the boys put out three more albums. The Beach Boys Today, Summer Days and Summer Nights, and the Beach Boys Party. So that's 9 albums in the space of 3 years.
Wow. Not
Yeah.
even the Beatles had that output.
Then it's time for LSD.
Oh, okay.
He composes parts of California Girls whilst on this stuff. However, he also attributes paranoia to his LSD use. On top of that, Marilyn separates from Brian. She couldn't reach him, trying to convince him to give up the people he was hanging out with. They reconcile and move to Beverly Hills, where Brian said he experienced a surge in creativity. He's also inspired by the Beatles' Rubber Soul album. The result? 1966's Pet Sounds, considered by some as the greatest album in the history of albums ever. It hits number 10 on Billboard's album chart, but Brian is mortified that it didn't go to number 1. He spends the rest of the year working on the single Good Vibrations, which did go to number 1. Next up is an album called Smile, or it was gonna be. It never materializes to Brian's worsening mental condition and exhaustion.
Oof.
However, in 2004, Brian completes and releases a version of Smile as his 5th solo album. Meanwhile, back in 1967,
Sorry.
Brian builds his own studio where the band would record until 1972. Smiley Smile comes out in 1967. It's a lo-fi version of what Smile was supposed to be. Brian got to a point where he said he decided not to try anymore because he got tagged with the Genius label and he found it was just too much to live up to.
Uh-oh.
Yep. And so he doesn't. He pretty much stays in his bedroom self-medicating on food, alcohol, and drugs.
Oh, hence that thing in the cartoon you showed me where he's lying in bed with steak sauce.
Yep. He comes out every once in a while to join recording sessions with the boys to suggest revisions to what he heard the band doing. Carl takes more of a lead in production, though Brian remains still indirectly involved. In 1972, Brian joins the Beach Boys in Holland after much persuasion. Their album, Holland, comes out in January of 1973. Murray dies in June of 1973, causing Brian to seclude himself once again, abusing food, drugs, and alcohol. In 1974, Capitol releases a 2-record compilation, Endless Summer. It hits number 1 and revitalizes the Beach Boys' career. Brian gets his shit together with help from pro basketball player Stan Love, who, yes, was Mike's cousin, and psychologist Eugene Landy, known for his 24-hour therapy program, which basically he's micromanaging his clients' lives. Landy is just charged after a year because of his expensive fees, but he comes back in 1982 and is not only Brian's therapist, but business manager, executive producer, co-songwriter, and business advisor.
Whoa.
The state of California revokes Eugene's license in 1989, but Landy is still Brian's business partner until a 1992 restraining order bars him from ever contacting Brian again.
Whoa.
Meanwhile, back in 1976, 15 Big Ones comes out celebrating the band's 15th anniversary. Brian is touring with the band for the first time since 1964. In 1977, the Beach Boys' Love You was released. It's essentially a Brian solo album and was originally going to be called Brian Wilson Loves You, but someone made him change his mind. Again, he's back on overeating and the drugs, and he and Marilyn separate in 1978 and divorce in 1979.
Oh.
Now it's the 80s, and Brian falls hard off the wagon again. Eugene Landy re-enters Brian's life, which he controls more than ever. But Brian says that Brian, is the one in charge. Brian also signs with Sire Records and releases his first self-titled solo album in 1988. It does respectably well. Also in 1988, the Beach Boys get a number one hit, Kokomo. It's their last number one and their last top 40 hit. Brian is not on it, which we'll get into a little later.
Oh.
Though he does participate in a Spanish language version of the song.
Huh.
And then also that year, the boys get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and people, you need to go on to see the induction speech, especially Mike Love's turn.
It's the most spiteful, bitter thing you will ever hear.
Yeah. Also, in 1983, Dennis drowns after drinking all day and then deciding to dive in Marina Del Rey to recover an ex-wife's belongings he'd thrown overboard 3 years prior.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Now it's the 90s. Brian spends a lot of it involved in lawsuits, 9 separate ones, many unresolved until the early 2000s. He writes an autobiography, Wouldn't It Be Nice? The result, defamation suits filed by Mike Love, Al Jardine, Carl Wilson, and believe it or not, Brian's mom, Audrey.
Oh, no.
And like I said before, Eugene Landy is out of the picture in 1992, and Brian's productivity increases significantly. From this point, he's releasing solo albums and touring. He does a Pet Sounds 40th anniversary tour in 2006, and he does a Smile tour. He reunites with Mike, Al, David Marks, and Bruce Johnston to record the Beach Boys' 50th anniversary album, That's Why God Made the Radio, released in 2012. He also tours with the boys. Love and Mercy, a biopic, comes out in 2014, and I believe it was Paul Dano who played him in the early years and John Cusack playing him in the later years.
That works.
Kind of?
Yeah.
Okay, in 2016, Brian teams up with Al Jardine for a Pet Sounds 50th anniversary tour, and Brian plays his last concert on July 26, 2022. In January 2024, Brian's second wife, Melinda, died, and Brian is diagnosed with dementia a month later.
Oh.
He dies in his sleep on June 11, 2025. Now, as for me, I sort of remember them as a kid. 15 Big Ones was a hit, and their cover of the Beach of Chuck Berry's Rock and Roll Music was played a lot, and I mean a lot. Also, they played up the street from us on September 2nd, 1977, at the old Narragansett racetrack. 40,000 people showed up.
Wow.
And it's still the largest outdoor concert in Rhode Island history. And there's a plaque or sign somewhere in the area, I've seen it online, but I haven't seen it in person, that commemorates their appearance. And also Nana's friend Charlie, who was an East Providence policeman at the time, had to work detail for that show. And he was not too happy about that because allegedly it was just a really crazy scene.
I bet, yeah.
Figure 40,000 people and, maybe a handful of police. What could go wrong? I made my own Beach Boys best of by borrowing Paul's copy of the Good Vibrations 30 Years of the Beach Boys box set that came out in 1991. It was 5 discs. I pared it down to 2. I think I got like 49 songs out of it. So in honor of their 1976 album, 15 Big Ones, which commemorated their 15 years as a band at the time, we're reviewing 15 Beach Boys songs, which was really hard for me to do. There's one song which I thought, I probably should have put it on, but it's not called 16 Big Ones. So that's what you're dealing with here, people, when it comes to me. So yeah, there was so many songs left out, so damn many. And I know listeners are going to be all, well, how could you leave this song out and that one? So at this moment, I just really want to apologize for the following songs not being on there. And again, we just wanted to keep it to a one episode tribute. So I apologize for not having 409, Little Deuce Coupe, Catch a Wave, Be True to Your School, Little Saint Nick, The Warmth of the Sun, All Summer Long, Little Honda, Wendy, Don't Back Down, Dance, 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 Help Me Rhonda, The Little Girl I Once Knew, which I really regret not putting on, Sloop John B., Hang On to Your Ego, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times, Darlin', Disney Girls, Surf's Up, Sail on Sailor, It's Okay, and Good Timin'.
But not Barbara Ann, because that, for full disclosure, my Nana's name, Dad's mom's name, is Barbara Ann.
Yeah, I just left it off for some reason. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know. Anyway, it was a cover.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's jump into it.
First track, Surf and Safari. It's surf rock. What more could you expect? Guy's convincing his date to go surfing with him. Let's go surfing now. Everybody's learning how. Come along and surf with me.
Doom, 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 doom,
And maybe a couple friends too. He also lists places around the world where surfing is taking off as a sport and just something to do for fun as a day at the beach. My favorite part of this will always be the chorus, which I just sang. But I think what makes that hook catchy are the lower notes that stand out as the medley. As a former choir kid, the singers who have lower registers often don't get the melody, they get the harmony, which can be very complex. But as Ron Procopio once said, to paraphrase, those singers are the peanut butter of the PB&J. You do need them, otherwise the song isn't fleshed out and it doesn't work as well. I like the song and associate it with summer, as I do most of the Beach Boys stuff.
The peanut butter of the PBJ. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, this was written by Mike and Brian, and you got to start somewhere. Now, they had to rely on surfer friend Jimmy Bowles for the references to surfing sites and terms because, like I said, Dennis was the only one who surfed. Now, a woody is a station wagon with wood paneling on the doors and sides of the car, and I've got a smirking daughter sitting across from me when she heard the word woody.
Well, because Chuck Vermette wrote a song called I Always Get a Woody, so that's what I was thinking of.
Anyway, shooting the pier was surfing between the supporting pillars of a pier, which is very risky and I guess nowadays illegal. Walking the nose is when the surfer moves to the front of the nose of the surfboard to hang 10, basically balancing with their toes over the tip. The song went to number 14 on Billboard. Musically, Carl's got his Chuck Berry guitar on. He was like one of the primo Chuck Berry imitators, right up there with Keith Richards. Mm-hmm. Dennis is on basic drums, Brian's on bass, David Marks is on rhythm guitar because Al Jardine had left, but eventually David would quit after having some arguments with Murray, so Al would be back. And, oh yes, Mike on vocals. Mm-hmm. Murray produced Surfin' Safari, allegedly. Either that or he grabbed the credit for it, because he's a genius too, Mm-hmm. And, but it kind of has a rinky-dink sound to it, but, it's first song, first album. They're learning as they go along.
Mm-hmm. Next track, Surfin' USA, or as my friend Darian would call it, surfin' on my ass.
Do I want to know?
Yeah.
No, I probably do not.
Anyway, listen, I know they were known for surf rock, but after Surfin' Safari, having two in a row felt kind of redundant. And again, that's what they do, but in my opinion, Surfin' Safari is the better track. I do like the music video they did for this about 2 years ago, where a girl gets home from school and dreams of the surfing she'll do over the summer. It's well shot, and I love the font they chose for the lyrics. But other than that, the song doesn't do it for me. Oh, and if there was an ocean in New York, have fun with the floating sewer rats everywhere. But I do agree with the Beach Boys. I feel bad for people who can't grow up near an ocean. I love living on a coastal state to go to the beach.
This is written by Brian Wilson and Chuck Berry. Chuck got the credit because basically it's a rewrite of Sweet Little 16. Mm-hmm. And Mike got an unwritten credit. But Mike has claimed that contributing 2 or 3 words to a song counts as a songwriting credit.
No.
So he's kind of like the George Reed of rock and roll. He needed the Colonel McKean to take him down a peg, which, stay tuned. Anyway, musically, that's not Dennis on the drums. It's Wrecking Crew member Frank DeVito, who I always thought it was Hal Blaine, similar style. Mm-hmm. Hal would play on more and more Beach Boys songs from 1963 through 1967, peaking in 1966 with Pet Sounds. Anyway, Brian didn't have patience with Dennis's drumming skills. And that's Brian on the organ, by the way. Mm-hmm. The choruses of the song list a ton of surfing locales in California, with nod to Hawaii, Waimea Bay, and even Australia, Narrabeen. And again, they had to consult their surfer friend Jimmy Bowles. Mm-hmm. As for the verses, from the first line, it's apparent that surfing excludes a lot of people, because it's, if everybody had an ocean in the USA, well, you don't.
Yeah, but you don't.
just the East Coasters and the West Coasters. But that didn't stop the song from hitting number 3 on Billboard because they were really good at selling the California dream.
Next track, In My Room. Where was this song when I was a teenager? Because they nailed it. At the end of the day, my room is my refuge. That's the thesis of the song, and it still resonates with me to this day. My room is often where I spend the most time in my apartment. It has soft lighting with the lamp my grandmother made. I have an artist altar where I can do work for the podcast and write commissions, and it's the perfect atmosphere for unwinding with yoga at the end of a long day. But what the Beach Boys capture here is that wistful melancholy. They don't relish being sad, but having a refuge where they can be sad or dream or pray makes it a little comforting. And I want to know what the process was like to choose the harmonies and melodies for this song because they're able to capture that bittersweet wistfulness with their voices. It's a well-crafted song that made me sway and look back at how far I've come with depression and anxiety.
Okay, this was written by Brian and Gary Usher. They played it for Brian's mom, who said it was the most beautiful song ever. Murray said to Gary, "Not bad, Usher, not bad." Gary said that was the nicest thing Murray ever said to him.
Ouch.
Oof. This was one of Brian's most personal songs. He thought of his room as his kingdom where, no one could bother him, no one could reach him. Mm-hmm. He was just fine by himself. And since it's a personal song, he, not Mike, sings lead on this. Mm-hmm. It seemed like Brian saved the really good ones for himself. Mm-hmm. Classical musician Maureen Love, yep, Mike's sister, plays the harp on this. And I'm sure she was a very nice person. Mm-hmm. I like to think so.
Hope she was,
anyway.
yeah. Next track, Fun, Fun, Fun. Hey, that opening sounds familiar. A teenage thrill seeker drives a T-Bird around at top speed when she's supposed to be studying or at the library. Dad takes the T-Bird away, but joke's on him because the boyfriend's got to drive her around town now. You ban something from a teenager without engaging in a healthy dialogue, they'll find a way. I noticed this time around that the Beach Boys' ooze sounded like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and I'm sure they were an influence. This song had one hokey part with the piano. It sounded like a Green Onions knockoff. But as the title says, this song was still fun, 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 and you feel happy for the teenage hooligans at the end.
Mm-hmm. This was written by Brian and Mike based on a true incident. The boys were at a Utah radio station doing promo stuff for concerts they'd be playing. The station manager's daughter, Shirley Johnson, who was working as a part-time secretary, was complaining loudly how she had borrowed her dad's Thunderbird to go study at the University of Utah Library. But she wound up at a hamburger stand instead. It's easy to get the two things mixed up. Anyway, when her dad found out, he revoked her driving privileges. In the song, she's cruising, has the radio blasting. She makes the Indy 500 look like a Roman chariot race now. She leads the guys on wild goose chases. They can't catch her. She's born to drive. Then Dad finds out and takes the keys. But luckily for her, Mike comes along and says, "Hey, come along with me and we'll have fun." But I have a feeling only he'll have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, she probably just wants the car back and, having that freedom, and who are you? Get out of here.
Who would want Mike Love after that speech?
And what is fun anyway?
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
I'm pretty sure in the song, she and Mike have two different ideas of what that word means.
Yeah.
If she's smart, and I bet she is, when Mike pulled up in his car, she demanded the keys and took off without him. See ya. Dennis and Hal Blaine co-drum on this, with Hal being the one making all the drum fills.
Next track, Don't Worry Baby. That's the most intense pizzicato I've ever heard in my life. I dedicate this track to the couple where one person is anxious and the other person is grounded. Now, in this case, the anxiety happens to be about a car race, but if you didn't know that, the song is still pretty universal. You can be going through some private nightmare until your person shows up and it all goes away. One of my friends told me that's what they felt when they met their wife, and I didn't understand what it meant until a couple of years ago. So if you have a partner you're grateful for, then put this song on and revel in the gratitude.
Okay, this was written by Brian and Roger Christian. Brian got the phrase from then-girlfriend Marilyn Novell. It sort of starts off with Brian worrying about competing in a drag race. He bragged about his car and he can't back down now. No, sir, he cannot. And his girlfriend assures him, "Don't worry, it'll be all right." But maybe the drag race is a metaphor for something else? Because the drag race isn't referred to until the second verse. The first verse, well, it's been building up inside of me for, I don't know how long. I don't know why, but I keep thinking something's bound to go wrong. It could be Brian's first time, perhaps?
I don't know.
And she's trying to reassure him it'll be okay, because she seems to be taking lead on this one. Quote, oh, what she does to me when she makes love to me, unquote, as opposed to when I make love to her. Or maybe, it really is just about a drag race. There's enough ambiguity, though, to make the case for either scenario. And once again, Brian sings lead because, can anyone ever imagine Mike singing lead on this song?
Mm-mm.
No, you can't. Stupefyingly, this song only made it to number 24 on Billboard. And it's also your mom's favorite Beach Boys song.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Next track, I Get Around. I don't know if you saw that video I sent you about the guy breaking down the harmonies for this song. Okay.
I did.
I know this song is about being the cool guy who gets around and hangs out with his friends and gets the girl, but to me, this song brings a different kind of happiness, and I think the music video they released captures it. For me, this is the feeling of happiness I felt as a teenager, going to parties for the first time where we could do what we wanted. And the second wave of that was driving to see my friends in my own car. You felt pretty cool and on top of the world for that. So this brings back happy memories, maybe just not the ones the Beach Boys intended.
This was written by Brian and Mike. First off, though, it was Brian got the solo credit. Years later, Mike sued, and he won. In court, Brian testified that he himself wrote most of it, with Mike possibly contributing the round part.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I have to do it. I have to do it. To paraphrase Colonel McKean, oh, brilliant! I suppose every time you see those words, your puny chest will swell up with pride over your great rock and roll contribution.
It's better than that omission of that race of barbarians.
Race of barbarians!
Anyway,
that's kind of like giving George Reed credit, co-authorship with Thomas Jefferson for the Declaration of Independence.
Then I suggest the phrase "in many cases" be added.
Okay. Anyway, so the guy is bored with driving up and down the same old strip. He needs to find a place where the kids are hip, because, hey, it was the 1960s. Mm-hmm. Amazingly, the bad guys know him and his friends, but they leave them alone?
That's a fantasy for you.
Yeah, that is. His car has never been beat, and he's never missed with the ladies. The lines that confuse me, though, are, quote, none of the guys go steady because it wouldn't be right to leave their best girl home on a Saturday night, unquote. Because I'm thinking, well, wouldn't that be who you'd be going steady with, your best girl?
Mm-hmm.
Or unless the steady and the best girl are two different women?
Uh-oh.
I don't know, I'm just missing something, I guess. Brian chimes in with a falsetto during the chorus about how he has a real good cool head, and he's making real good bread, because, again, it's the 60s. Life was just that damn good in 1964.
Was it, though?
Well, because what could possibly go wrong? And anyway, I Get Around was the B-side to Don't Worry Baby. And on July 4th, 1964, it became the Beach Boys' first #1 hit. That'll show those Beatles. And this song may have been the start of an unspoken rivalry between Brian and Paul McCartney. And it was also the first Beach Boys song to make the UK top 10.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Next track, When I Grow Up. Harpsichord time. Very introspective for a teenager. Wondering if he'll like the same things as an adult, have any regrets, keep the same taste in women. And the other singers sing numbers as to indicate at what ages or stages in his life he's starting to ask himself these questions. And Dad, for what it's worth, you're not a square. I feel like this is a good song to play when you've just graduated college.
I'll settle for rectangle. Anyway, this is written by Brian and Mike. A 13-year-old wonders what life will be like when he grows up to be a man. Will he dig the same things that turn him on now? Will he look for the same things in a woman that he does in a girl? Settle down or travel the world? Will his kids think he's a square? Will he love his wife for the rest of his life? This may have been the point where the Beach Boys turned into the Beach Men, because this was kind of pretty heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, the guys sing "Won't Last Forever." It's kind of sad, but the cake taker for me has always been the counting. Like, they start at 14, and then the fade out ends at 32, which you really have to turn up to hear, because I've always heard it ending at 30, thinking that the guys could never imagine life after that number. You were just old by then. And there was also that saying, never trust anyone over 30. Speaking of 30s, it took 37 takes to get this done.
Whoa.
Dennis had a hard time with the drumming, which caused some takes to end prematurely. And he had to do a single stroke roll, then hit the toms, then a single stroke hi-hat roll, for lack of a better term. It was not your basic drum pattern. This was something that Hal Blaine could just, do in his sleep. But for Dennis, he really had to work at this. And Brian's the one playing the harpsichord.
Next track, California Girls. Is that a sitar or no?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards no. All I could think of was John Adams' puny pale things compared to our New England girls.
Oh my God, I was going to write that in, but I thought, too many 1776 references as it is, but
No such thing.
thank you.
Anyway, and this guy is saying more or less the same thing. Meets a lot of women on tour and he's attracted to their different traits, but it's more so out of curiosity. He wants a California girl, more specifically a tan one who wears a bikini. Your rock and roll is showing, Brian. And that's really all the song is, dreaming of girls at a sandy beach. But this poses the question, what percentage of adults would prefer to have a partner who lives near right where they are? Because sure, that's important and long-distance relationships are really hard, but there are also some couples who are in long-distance relationships, or they either move and they make it work. It's not easy, but they stay together. It'd be fascinating to study what makes people want to stick with someone close to home, and what makes somebody want to move for somebody else. Not my favorite song, but it provokes some interesting questions.
This was written by Brian and or Mike, depending on who you ask.
Who do you think it is?
I'd go with Brian. Please don't sue me, Mike. Brian called this a hymn to youth, but really it's an ode to girls/women from different parts of the United States and the world, possibly. Apparently the best ones are from California. Apparently, who knows? The guys sing on this one with only Carl playing an instrument, 12-string guitar. The Wrecking Crew plays everything else. Brian once called the intro the greatest piece of music he'd ever written. The song hit number 3, just like David Lee Roth's version would in 1985. Bonus, Carl Wilson sings backup on Dave's cover.
Who's that?
One of the Beach Boys.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, man.
I spaced out.
Okay. Also, in the 1980s, Mike Love had to go ruin it all by singing it to Nancy Reagan and calling her the ultimate California girl.
Oh, no!
Or some sort of words to that effect. I don't know if they were at the White House or something. And
Oh, God.
Anyway, sorry to put that in your head.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Next track, Wouldn't It Be Nice? Wouldn't it be nice to forget that fact I just learned? I knew this one right from the title. Dad played it in his car when we were either driving from or to Keto's in Bristol. I relate to this song a lot. When you're teenagers or young adults falling in love and you can picture the future. Not just all the dates you'll go on, but the little things. Especially for me, going out and then realizing you could just go home together, get in bed, roll over, and turn off the light. The song is still more in the vein of fantasizing, but I'm at the point in my life now where that's going to be a reality a little while down the line. Very prescient for me right now.
This is the opening track to Pet Sounds, written by Brian, Tony Asher, and possibly Mike, who contributed some words. Hey, found some words, put them in.
Any relation to the to Jane Asher and Peter Asher?
No.
Okay.
No. Oh, the innocence of this song. Quote, wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so long, unquote. And also, quote, you know it's going to make it that much better when we can say goodnight and stay together, unquote. So the singer is lamenting that they're too young to get married, which would allow them to do stuff. But what to do? What to do? Because in real life, Brian was married and he was jonesing after his sister-in-law. How's that for innocence?
Oh.
But the thing was, I think Brian knew his listeners. Good kids, fine young citizens.
Clean-cut kids.
Still innocent, yes. A month later, Wouldn't It Be Nice was released as a single. After it was released as a single, the Beatles dropped Revolver on an unsuspecting populace.
Ooh.
And it kind of made Wouldn't It Be Nice look quaint. Yeah. Now, it took 3 months of sporadic sessions to record. From the end of January to middle of April 1966, the Wrecking Crew plays all the instruments. It opens with not what sounds like a harp, but something called a 12-string Mando guitar.
Huh.
Then you get that whomp of percussion, and then the song's off. Now, for me, this is going to sound weird, but whenever I hear that intro with the Mando guitar, I picture this fresh-faced couple skipping along in these green hills. They're hand in hand, and they're smiling at each other, and they're happy as all get out. Then the womp comes in, and I just imagine that giant foot from Monty Python's Flying Circus
Oh
coming down
yeah.
and squashing that couple flat. Yep.
Hmm.
And despite all that snark, I absolutely love this song. Great harmonies, vocals, music, the whole schmear.
Next track, God Only Knows. I think this is Paul McCartney's favorite Beach Boys song, and I think I can tell why. The opening strings sounded like a harpsichord, and again, I said this before with other bands, but those horns are straight up lifted out of a Beatles arrangement. In fact, this is the song of theirs that sounds most like a Beatles track, except for the sleigh bells. And I could hear the Beatles singing a song to this music.
Sleigh bells, that's Phil Spector influence.
Okay, and the bridge in the middle was fascinating to listen to.
Hmm.
I can't describe what they're doing musically aside from saying that a bunch of notes ascend and descend rapidly, but it sounded like a distant cousin or a distant relative of Tears of a Clown by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles.
I
You
can
hear
kind
it.
of hear that.
And then there's this bit of percussion that sometimes sounds like horse hooves clip clopping, and then other times it sounds a bit like somebody's doing a soft shoe. As to lyrics, you go through an interesting range of emotions when you listen to them. He has you in the first half by basically saying, "I don't know if I'll love you always," which puts you on edge. But then he does the bait and switch by saying, "As long as there are stars in the sky, I will love you." And then it gets contemplative and a little bit depressive when he says, "If this person wasn't in his life, there'd be no purpose to living." Which, if you really love the guy, you'll say, "Absolutely not. I want you to go on living after I'm gone." So I found this pretty fascinating. I think it's, at the time, I thought it was the most musically interesting of all the ones on the album so far, but another song quickly replaced that, which we'll get to.
Okay, this was written by Brian and Tony Asher, and at that time, it was a big deal to reference God in a song, unless, as Tony Asher said, you were Kate Smith singing God Bless America. And yeah, it does start off, "I may not always love you," and you're thinking, what? I may not always love you. But then, as you said, as long as there are stars above you, never need doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. I guess that's kind of reassuring, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But then, if she ever were to leave him, life would go on, but what good would living do for him? So, you need to hide the implements of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And God only knows what he'd be without her. Not too much pressure there. It's like, I love you. I may not always love you. And by the way, if you leave, is life really going to be worth living for me?
Mm-hmm.
That's all on you. Anyway, Brian had Carl sing this because, quote, "I was looking for a tenderness and sweetness, which I knew Carl had in himself as well as in his voice," unquote. Bruce and Bruce Johnston and Brian sing backing vocals. There's no Al, Dennis, or Mike on this. 14 members of the Wrecking Crew play on this, and it sounds like a symphony. And I think Mozart, he would have liked it. Paul McCartney has called it the greatest song ever written. And
Eh.
that's Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And they went all the way to number 39 on Billboard.
Oh,
I know, go figure.
just barely made the top 40.
Yeah.
Next track, Caroline. No. You could interpret this song in one of two ways. The first would be that this is a song about a man watching a woman he loves go through a very depressive episode in her life. The second way could be that this person is the man's ex, and he's watching her sort of crash out post-breakup. I'm leaning toward the former, but there was a YouTube commenter who said that he dated this girl for 3 years, and after the breakup she cut her hair, and then the next day this song came on the radio and he cried his eyes out. I think I tuned this song out because it might have hit a little too close to home, because I've been the depressed person before. But one thing I did notice musically was that for the first time there was the presence of a saxophone. Which other instrument are you going to use? If you're going through a breakup, I think the song will make you cry your eyes out even more.
This is written by Brian and Tony Asher, and it's the last track on Pet Sounds. Quote, "Where did your long hair go? Where's the girl I used to know?" Unquote. Brian sees Caroline and just wants the past that they once had. But, people grow, change, move on, and Brian is just having a hard time with that. Quote, "Could I ever find in you again the things that made me love you so much then?" Unquote. It's just all around sad. Brian is the only Beach Boy to appear on this track. He has 14 Wrecking Crew members backing him up, and at the end he just put this musical tag. It's the sound of dogs barking and then the train. Originally, he wanted to bring a horse into the studio.
No, that's
And everyone's looking at him like, you want to bring a horse in the studio? And he's saying, yeah, he's trained. Nothing's going to happen. It'll be okay. But he was talked out of that.
We almost had a horse in Cinderella at Stadium Theater, but they put the kibosh on that too.
Probably a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian just wanted the album to end that way. And people thought, oh, just, why would you do that to that song? But I always thought of it as like, Caroline's getting on that train, leaving forever, just leaving everything behind.
Mm-hmm.
And the dogs, they're just chasing the train.
Yeah. Next track, Good Vibrations. Okay, I have a story about this song. Once I was staying over at Nan and Grandpa's house. They put on a 60s retrospective on PBS, and the Beach Boys were performing Good Vibrations on Ed Sullivan. They showed that clip. I immediately start dunking on their hair and clothes. As a Gen Zer, I thought their hair and clothes were kind of funny, but I took it too far and was being a jerk. Wow, what's the deal with their hair? That's stupid. Who'd look like that? And it's the only time Grandpa ever got really mad at me because Nana was saying how much she loved the Beach Boys and I was calling their look stupid. So when I heard him shout my name, yeah, Grandpa shouted, I immediately shut up and was quiet for the rest of the program. Yeah, the look on Dad's face is like, holy shit.
Wow, I never knew this.
Yep.
Wow.
Anyway.
So what did they look like?
They were just wearing the white suits and they had the bouffant hair and then they had like the paisley shirts underneath the white suit with some sort of cravat or something. And I thought it was kind of stupid.
Okay.
Anyway, memory aside, I still love this song. The first time I remembered listening to it though, like really listening to the music and not focusing on the video, was on a Try Not to Sing episode of Elders React. I was blown away by the bass voice and I've had a soft spot for it ever since. I'm picking up good vibrations. The opening is well done with how the leader sings the word I because he sounds truly breathless. Could that be interpreted bisexual? Yeah, sure, but I think it's more so about chemistry. The sense you feel when you meet the right person and everything clicks into place. You dig their vibe. You love the way they look. You love the smell of their perfume. And most importantly, you know they're kind. When I listened to the full version that was on the album, I used to hate that bridge. It felt like the trance broke, but then it kicks right back into joy, so I was able to forgive the Beach Boys for that easily. Another one of my favorites from them.
Okay, this is written by Brian and Mike. She gives him good vibrations. He's picking up excitations. Mm-hmm. Now, Mike came up with that line, and I have to admit, it's pretty damn good.
It is. He can get a credit for that. His puny little chest can swell with pride on that one.
Okay, because that's kind of the gist of the whole song. And yes, drugs may be in for it as well.
Oh, sure.
All the boys appear on this. Brian plays piano and tambourine. Carl's on guitar. Dennis is on Hammond organ. And the rest of the boys sing. It took from February to September 1966 to record this. 30 sessions, 30 hours of tape, and lots of money. Mm-hmm. Luckily for everyone, it went to #1 in the United States and beyond. And I think that this is the song they'll always be known for. Now,
I think so too.
When I went on the Wikipedia page for Good Vibrations, it's massive. It has 348 citations.
Oh, wow.
Whether they're excitations is up to you.
Okay, next track, Heroes and Villains. I need every single classically trained musician who took classes in music theory to listen to this song and explain to me what's going on here, because my brain cannot even begin to process how the Beach Boys got this quality of sound. There's a harpsichord and some vocal scatting like jazz, and there's not so much a bridge so much as a movement like a symphony, and it boggles my mind. I didn't pay attention to the story at all. I thought this was, going to be these Californian boys doing their version of a Western, maybe something in the vein of Seven Spanish Angels, but then that music hit and I was totally sucked into the sound. I wasn't paying attention to the lyrics for 1 minute, because that's, my ears were just processing. This is a very difficult song to try to explain what happens musically, but you just need to listen to it yourself because it's the most musically complex song in this album, and it's astounding.
Okay, this was written by Brian and Van Dyke Parks, and it was originally allegedly inspired by the Marty Robbins song El Paso, because Brian and Van wanted it to be like a Southwestern ballad, which lyrically it does, but musically it sounds like anything but that. And this was an even more involved recording than Good Vibrations. Like you said, there's like so much going on. Recording began in October of 1966 and ended last week. Ended in June of 1967. It came out in July of 67 and amazingly, it went to number 12. Mm-hmm. But then again, Brian looked at it as a huge failure, and it just drove him into seclusion.
Oh.
And again, if you go on the Wikipedia Heroes and Villains page, it is huge. They really break down everything that's going on. And to me, it's like this song's a mess, but I absolutely love it. I mean, it's just so complex and there's just so much going on. And it's one of those things, it's like the more I hear it, the more I like it. Maybe their best song? I don't know.
I think you could argue that.
You could make a case for it.
Next track, rock and roll music. Okay, technically we already covered this song. We did our Chuck Berry trilogy, and I already have the song saved to my playlist from when we did cover Chuck Berry. And I'm grateful that the Beach Boys would give Chuck credit where credit was due. And it's kind of like, their version of it is a tribute to the rock and rollers of old. But if you really want to listen to the rock and rollers of old, go listen to those guys. But this is something I love when famous people are fanboys of other famous people like we are, because they feel like one of the crew. If you want a great example of this, watch the video of Brian Wilson listening to one of the Spectre Girls covering his song and giggling with glee. Anyways, I like this song as a rock tribute, and it makes me want to dance like a 50s greaser. Great dance track.
This was written and first performed by Chuck Berry, obviously. It was famously covered by the Beatles in 1964, and then the Beach Boys cover came out in May of 1976 and went to number 5. And theirs was the first version I heard.
Yep, I know.
Then the second version I heard was the Beatles, and Chuck's original was the last version that I heard.
So what's your favorite?
Oh, Chuck, then the Beatles, then the Beach Boys.
Okay.
And after hearing Chuck's version, it made me realize how laid back the Beach Boys version is.
Yeah.
But then again, I heard theirs first, and it was just played so much around these parts for some reason. So it'll always occupy some sort of spot in my musical heart.
Final track, Kokomo. I forgot about this song.
Really?
And I instantly knew what it was when it came on. Aruba, Jamaica. This song should be used in an airline commercial, and I mean that in the best way. It feels like a vacation. I feel like this is as close as the Beach Boys get to making an exact copy of the Phil Spector Wall of Sound with how loud the drums are and their voices blend. Great song for a tropical jaunt. Play it on a boat as you go sailing and sail away.
On the Black Island Ferry. This was written by John Phillips from Mamas and Papas, Scott McKenzie, Mike Love, and Terry Melcher, who is Doris Day's son. Aruba, Jamaica, you know it by heart. You may not want to know it, but you know it.
You know it.
It was on the Cocktail soundtrack, which was a Tom Cruise bartender movie, which was insanely popular when it came out. And it went to number 1 in 1988, and it'd be their last number 1 as well as their last top 40 hit. And it makes a lot of worst song ever lists.
Really?
It
Why?
does. Because I think people, like critics say, it's like the Beach Boys sold out with this one. They sold out their sound and everything. And there was something about 80s yuppie scum kind of thing
Oh, for
going
God's
on there.
sake.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I can think of worse songs because
Yeah.
we do have that.
Dave Barry episode, yeah.
Yep. Brian is not on it. According to Mike, Eugene Landy refused to let Brian be on it unless he, Eugene, was producer and got a co-writer credit. And, I got to give the boys credit. They said no. Good for them. And that's the 15 songs.
Overall, I'm very glad we did this tribute episode. I thought the Beach Boys were just surf rock that I casually enjoyed, but there's so much more. And they did some cool stuff with their arrangements and orchestrations. I think I want to read Brian Wilson's memoir after I read my historical biographies. I'm very curious to learn about how his brain worked to make a song. I just want to conclude with what I think is something very poignant. Brian Wilson described how he had anxiety while on tour, and he realized that if his brain could imagine some pretty horrible things, he could imagine some pretty beautiful things too, and that's why he wrote all the songs he did. And I can't think of a better note to end that on other than saying go listen to their music.
Okay, now as a music geek, lover, whatever you want to call me, I know I'm supposed to at least own Pet Sounds. No, I don't. I've borrowed it from the library a few times and I've listened to it a lot, and I think it's okay. I have the songs I need from the box set. And I always thought they were a great singles band, so a best of is definitely the way to go. I think the last one they came out with was like 50 songs for 50 years, something like that. Anyway, I made my own 49 songs. I mean, you can do the same thing.
Yeah. All right. right. As always, thank you for listening to Licensed Style. My dad listens to this. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Because remember, the more you interact with the YouTube video, the greater chance you have of appearing on the YouTube homepage. If you follow me on social media, I post the episodes there. If you're friends with my dad, tell him what you want to listen to, and you can send an email right to your inbox. As always, thank you for listening to Licensed Style. My dad listens to this. We'll be back next time with another album to nitpick and gripe about, but it'll be our summer special, and then we'll be doing a tribute to Ozzy afterwards. So, Dad, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I have to mention my friend Andy, who came up with the punk version of the Beach Boys.
Oh, God.
He called them the Bitch Boys.
Uh-huh.
They consisted of Crying Wilson, Snarl Wilson, Menace Wilson, Mike Haight, and Al Jardine. Rest in peace, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.